Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Financial Advisors Workshop. This is the show where we interview and discuss the business with our colleagues, financial advisors all across America. I think we're up to 40 states now and over 80 episodes. Today, we're going to meet Nicole Wirick in Michigan. And Nicole is from a split family. Apparently, there's Michigan and Michigan State, Nicole. Isn't that right?
You heard correctly, Brian. We're a house divided.
So if you're in Michigan, you know what that means all about. But Nicole, you're really a financial advisor with a lot of great background, and we're really pleased to have you on our show today. So welcome to the Financial Advisors Workshop.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, great. So Nicole, you're in Birmingham, Michigan, and you have a lot of background about your career before you became a financial advisor. And I thought maybe to give a little bit of background, you could talk to us a little bit about that, and then how you pivoted to the financial advisor world. All right.
Sure. I'd be happy to. Thanks.
Great.
So I am an attorney by background. I graduated from law school at Wayne State, which is in Detroit. It was very different when I attended school there. Huge renaissance in Detroit right now that we're all very excited about. But nonetheless, I was a student who graduated law school in 2006 and sat for the bar shortly thereafter. Passed the bar, but ultimately decided that practicing law just wasn't the right fit for me. So at that time, I connected with a girlfriend that I went to high school with, and she told me she worked for a major wirehouse and that they were always looking for talented folks. So I was very eager to have the conversation. I was in her manager's office 2 days later. And he said, Nicole, you're not the right fit to become an advisor yet. And I was so disappointed, Brian. I was like, well, why not? And he said, well, you don't have any experience whatsoever. And then he said, but we have a new program. It's a 2-year young leadership rotational program where you travel through different locations and different areas of the business, learning the business from the inside out. And at that point in time, I was a lifelong learner. I loved learning. I thought, well, this is great. I can learn some more skills. And if I want to pivot back to law, I can always do that. But in the meantime, I'm continuing to learn and grow and learn about a different business. So I accepted the offer and really never looked back.
Nice. So you started with an RIA in Michigan. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there were some other steps in between, and I don't want to I don't want to take the whole podcast talking about those other steps. But let me briefly get you up to speed on that one, if I may. So I worked through that rotational program, and that's where I first fell in love with financial planning. And I met a wealth planning consultant who had a very similar background to mine, a degree in business as well as a law degree. And I saw how he worked with advisors and their clients, and you utilized the firm's resources in putting together these very comprehensive, high-level financial plans for the ultra-high net worth. And I informed that gentleman that I wanted his job. And he quickly told me that I couldn't have it because he already had it. So I decided that I would find that job somewhere else. And I was a wealth management consultant for a few years at a smaller broker dealer, more regional in nature, and did that same sort of work. And that's actually where I started to pursue my LLM in taxation, which is an advanced degree in tax, to be able to more appropriately collaborate with the trust company, with high-level tax advisors in working with business owners and the ultra high net worth folks to just provide that additional level of value. And fun fact, in that role, I actually did some financial planning for some professional athletes and have been in the home of LA Dodgers. So pretty cool, right?
Cool. Yeah. Right.
And they were really nice people. Super nice.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, good. Okay. So what's the next step? How did we get to where we are now?
Okay. So great question. So from there, I was on the road a lot in that job. As you can imagine, you're traveling like 4 days a week typically. And I was at a point in my personal life where it was time to maybe settle down and be home more. So reached out to some mentors, which is how I've always connected to new jobs and opportunities. I've had great mentors over the years, and several of them, in fact. So was connected to a large RIA here in Michigan and went to work there for a few years. So that's how I transitioned away from that consulting role and into an advisory role. And after, a few years of great learning and opportunity, I decided it was time to start out on my own. So I have had my own RIA for about, maybe 4.5 or so years now.
Okay, great. So now you built
So
up.
if you do the math, I actually started the business right before the pandemic. So my timing was really quite exceptional, Brian.
Right. Although if you can survive through that, you can survive through anything. So maybe that's a good time to start. Not a bad time.
Well, that's a great perspective. I really like that. I sort of feel like it's a little bit of a badge of honor, to be honest with you.
Always better to start in a bad market, and if you can survive, you're a keeper. But that's good. So then, how has it gone since you started your own firm?
So it's been wonderful. It has been both the most challenging as well as the most fulfilling thing I've ever done professionally in my life. And I am just so grateful to work with fantastic clients and to be able to really take time to make sure that the fit is well aligned. So that is something that I value, being able to decide who is the right fit for me and my firm, and being able to take on those relationships at a pace and rate that I want to honor the process that I think is so important.
Excellent. So you're a fee only advisor.
Correct.
And you still are the only advisor in your firm, but you're considering some growth possibly.
Yes, that's true. So I am considering partnerships, and it is something that I think about actively, but I'm cautious. I guess I should say I'm cautiously optimistic on it. I'm, of course, optimistic because I believe that 1 + 1 can equal 3, and can provide a superior result. But by the same token, it really has to be right. The alignment of values has to be there. The fit has to be there. The complementary skill sets need to be there to be able to move forward, because the vision I have for my firm is that of a boutique. It's applying sort of the high level, comprehensive planning to an individual or family who has, somewhere between maybe $2 and $10 million of investable assets. So I want to create a really boutique structure to drill in on what's most important to those folks and why, and to be able to service them well. And that sometimes means turning down clients who aren't the right fit or aren't at the right time. So I'm very guarded and cautious about who I bring into my business and my life, for that matter.
So what kind of client families are you looking for?
So I'm looking for families. We already talked about the investable asset piece. That's one piece. But arguably the more important piece is a family who is interested in a planning first, investing second approach. Meaning, when I start a relationship, I take a lot of time upfront to truly understand the client and the family, both their goals, but also looking at their situation. And yes, of course, things like statements, but also ancillary materials like tax returns, estate planning documents, any business formation opportunities, pieces related to risk management. Those are all very important in looking at that big picture and putting a plan together. So I don't invest a penny of client money until we go through that process and make sure that we're really understanding the true essence of the client. And it's time consuming. It takes a lot of time. So the client has to be comfortable going through that process. They have to want to have a collaborative relationship amongst their team of experts, meaning that in going through that planning process, I'm talking to their CPA or tax advisor. And if they don't have one, occasionally you come across that, we interview folks together and find who is the right fit in that role. And they become then a very important part of the team. Same thing on the legal side. Although I do have the legal background and I do talk about opportunities, it's still important to engage with those legal advisors so that we are able to have a robust conversation and identify optimal outcomes for clients. So there has to be a desire to delegate, a willingness to have that sort of and value that collaborative team-based approach.
It's great. Now, a lot of financial advisors use money managers that are part of networks, InvestNet, other different groups, and then they hire and fire money managers. But you're among the unique advisors in the industry that actually run their own portfolio. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, in my experience, it's rare, unless perhaps someone wins the lottery. It's rare that they come to you with a check for, say, $5 million. That's not the experience that most of us have. There is traditionally a significant portion of assets that have been invested for a period of time. And there are positions that need to be integrated into that portfolio. So from my perspective, I think it's important to look at that unique situation and develop a plan for that type of implementation. So yes, while we certainly have models and basic structures in place, rarely can you just plug and play it with the situation like the clients I work with. So I like to be very hands-on in customizing those portfolios within certain parameters and leveraging, third-party resources without hiring a separate money manager or third-party asset manager to do those things. So that has been something that's been important to me. And as it relates to that boutique philosophy, because I spend so much time with each client's portfolio, it really lends itself to that boutique structure.
Nice. Well, good. So how do you manage these portfolios? Do you do your own research? Do you lean on certain research? And I'm curious how all that works.
Yeah, so I do some of my own research. I lean on some research. I'm constantly through relationships and things that I've built over time. I leverage those opportunities. It's amazing the information and opportunity that is available for us today. And I've always said I feel so fortunate to be at this time where I was able to start this RIA because of all of the opportunities available to folks like me. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible. 10 years ago, it probably would have been a whole lot harder. But we have, as small boutique RIA owners, we have great resources available to us to leverage so that we're not having to do it all in-house and have an office down the hall, doing one function, and an office across the hall doing another function. So I have access to great professionals, and I believe technology has really enabled that to become a reality.
It really
So I
has.
guess, I don't know, it was the right time. I guess, Brian, it was the right time.
Yeah, it really has. And there are tools now that independent advisors have that large firm advisors don't have. And it's really it's a great time to be an independent advisor, isn't it? And
I truly believe when I say, and I truly believe it, I don't think I could have done this 10 years ago. I don't think the opportunity and infrastructure was in place. So, we talked about my journey a little bit, and I know I fast forwarded through some parts, but it was an important journey. And although it took kind of some peculiar twists and turns at certain points, I believe it needed to happen to get me to this place at this moment in time to be able to have the experience that I've had. Had I gotten here earlier, I might not be sitting in this desk because I might not have had the same opportunity set.
So tell me, portfolio manager Nicole, what do you think of the markets?
Oh gosh, how long do we have on this call? So I think when it comes to investing, at least for my clients, we look at a long-term perspective and we make sure we're doing the right planning work up front. That's always key. I drill this into my clients and they're constantly calling me and telling me what's on the horizon so that we're not making decisions relating to portfolio management where we're having to do things because we have X, Y, and Z goal around the corner that we're not planning for appropriately. So I don't ever want to be in that position. I don't ever want any of my clients to be in that position. So we're having these constant conversations about what's coming around the bend. When it comes to the market, no one knows. No one has a crystal ball. I tell people that all the time. We do not make decisions based on what's happening on the news. We do not make decisions based on what's happening in politics. I know it's an election year and I do not want to talk about that, Brian, but we don't let those factors impact our decision making. Instead, we look to our plan. And that's why we spend all of that time going through the planning piece and have that constant conversation about what could be lying around the bend so that we're prepared.
Nice. We noticed that you do a lot of work in charities as well. Let's talk about that. And how does that integrate with your program, or is it just something on the side?
Yeah. So I myself am quite philanthropic, and it because of that natural interest, it's become an area that I've always really enjoyed from a planning perspective. I've heard people say clients seem to find people who have similar values, like attracts like, I guess. So a lot of the clients I work with tend to have those same charitable intentions. So I have spoke at the Plan Giving Roundtable here in Southeastern Michigan, and that's an area that I really enjoy. In fact, this year I'm putting together a multidisciplinary panel discussion on engaging affluent female donors.
Ah,
Because studies are showing that by the year 2030, women will control about 70% of the wealth in this country.
wow.
And when it comes to charitable decision making, generally females lead that decision making for their household. However, when it comes to investment management decisions, women tend to lag behind based on that same research. So here we have this disconnect. And this disconnect is that 3 out of 5 affluent donors are not optimizing the way they give to charity. So it's my hope to help sort of bridge that gap and discuss planning opportunities relating smarter ways to give to charity, as well as bringing in other professionals. We have an estate planning attorney, a tax professional, a planned giving officer to talk about engagement. So we're going to talk about engagement of female donors as well as opportunities from the financial planning, tax planning, and estate planning perspective.
You mentioned the issue of females and investing. We talked a little bit about that earlier. Let's explore that a little bit more. You have some thoughts on that, and it's based on your knowledge of females and investing, and you try to do something about it, aren't you?
Absolutely. It's an area that I'm really passionate about. And I told you earlier, Brian, some of our biggest advocates are actually men, which I think is fantastic because those male clients recognize that there is a possibility, a higher possibility that their spouse, their wife might be there, but might be here when they are not. So it's a high value for them to make sure that that spouse is engaged and part of the process and has a base level of understanding and comfort relating to the financial plan and investment management so that in a time of crisis, there is a smooth transition. So a lot of prospective clients actually end up in my office for that reason because they want their wives to have someone who they feel comfortable with, who they relate to, and who they want to engage with, who sort of leans in to where they're at. I've sat in meetings before where do people print paper anymore? I still do. I don't know. Do you still print paper, Brian? Okay. Well, these are meetings where there was actual paper and there was one set of paper and it sort of it might have ended up, it might have started in the middle of the couple, but at a certain point, it's like the husband has the paper in front of him and the wife's kind of like looking over the shoulder, like, what's going on over there? And I've seen this happen multiple times. I'm sure you have too. So just being able to engage that other party and lean into them and make them feel welcome and understood and not stupid or uncomfortable in any way. And the other thing I really try hard to do is like any industry, we have a lot of industry words that we all throw out there. So I try to talk to people like I want my doctor to talk to me.
All right.
Without the jargon, without the complication. I just want to have a conversation person to person. And I try to do that with prospects and clients. And I find that although I think men like it too, women really appreciate it.
They do. They do. Well, great. No, I noticed you have some rescue dogs, and they live with you and your husband Adam in Bloomfield Hills. You have Zula and Zeppelin. Are you a Led Zeppelin fan?
My husband was, yes, a big fan. Now they don't have their Michigan and Michigan State alliances, and just for the record here, Brian, I do feel I need to clarify that I am the Wolverine and that my spouse is the Spartan. So I want that to be duly noted in this recording. So I hope you don't edit that part out.
Congratulations on your national championship this year, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. So tell us about your rescue dogs.
All right. So we love rescuing dogs, and actually they came with Adam. It was part of the package. And since then, we've rescued another one. His name is Finn. He is a golden doodle, and he was a COVID dog who, family acquired during COVID and just didn't understand what goes into taking care of a puppy, particularly a golden doodle. So Finn's now also part of the mix here. And we did actually recently lose Zeppelin. So that was really heartbreaking. So now Zula has welcomed Finn, and they're sort of like a gang of, he's part of the pack, right? So yeah.
Nice.
They're very dear.
We have a wide and varied life and a very interesting practice. We're coming to the end of our discussion here, and I thought we've talked about a lot of different messages and different themes and things you work on. I thought, is there one message that, considering this show will be seen by about 300 financial advisors, people in our industry, and some people related to our industry, and then in near term, and then probably within the year, about 1,000 people in our industry will see this. So imagine you're in that conference room with 1,000 people, or you're in Michigan Stadium and they're all there. Okay. What message would you want to send them if you could send them one important message about success in our industry?
Yeah, I think the thing that I learned when I started my business, and I think I told you I started right before COVID, open-mindedness, willingness to pivot and change. Historically, I am not someone who has enjoyed this type of thing that we're doing. I shied away from presenting in front of people, from being on a podcast. I didn't like the attention. It made me very uncomfortable. Same thing with social media. I tended to be a more private person. I didn't like the idea of being on social media. It felt very uncomfortable for me. And when the pandemic started, I couldn't meet with those referral sources. I couldn't do business in the traditional ways that I had done it before. And at one point, I felt very, very helpless and defeated. So I said, okay, I can let this defeat me, or I can try something differently. And ultimately, I wasn't going to let it defeat me. So I decided to try something different and started really leaning into opportunities like this for us to have this conversation, which I now, believe it or not, enjoy very much. Same thing with social media. The thought of putting my face on social media was very, very uncomfortable. And now I record little mini clips that I post a few times a week about, timely conversations. And if you would have rewound time, I would have just been scared to death to do something like that. But circumstances led me down another road. And if I wasn't willing to pivot, I don't know if I'd be where I am today. So I guess my advice would be keep an open mind. If something isn't working, pivot. That's one of the great things about this industry. We can do that.
Yes. Keep moving forward. There's plenty of ways to make it happen.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, great. You're an inspiration. People see you grow and do really well. You have lots of great ideas for people in our industry, and lots of great background as well to help your clients. So you're an example of our industry's finest, Nicole. And thanks for being with us today on this show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun, Brian.
Excellent. Well, great. Well, we'll be back again soon with some other wonderful investment advisor, financial advisor people that we can talk to learn more and more about our industry and how people do things. There's as many ways to do this, it seems, as there are financial advisors out there. And we're fortunate enough today to learn from Nicole. So thanks everybody for being with us. We'll be back again with a new episode very soon, and we'll leave it there. Bye-bye for now.